Welcome to the Week in Italian Startup, where we discuss the latest highlights happening in the Italian tech and investment ecosystem. Nico, welcome back. This is the Week in Italian Startup, where we meet essentially every week and we go through a selection of the latest news that happened in the Italian startup ecosystem that Nico selected. And I encourage you to actually subscribe to his newsletter, which today reached more than 1,000, so past the 1,000 subscriber mark. So that's something to tell. And so if you Google Nicola, or if you find his, what is the website again?
It's dealflow.nicolasanarico.com, and you can subscribe.
Awesome, fantastic. All right, so without further ado, let's start. We have a lot to talk about. Last week was particularly busy week, so your newsletter was heavy this time, but I'm sure people appreciated that. So let's start with the biggest round. Some of the big rounds that happened. I would start with MDOTM. One of the big round last week raised 6 million in Series B. Very interesting deal because it is an investment advisor which is powered by artificial intelligence. So this is definitely something that has been happening in a lot of contexts, especially in the fintech space, where they're trying to use algorithms stemming from machine learning and AI to give investment advices. And they're targeting basically all the investment management ecosystem, wealth manager, private bankers, even private investors actually. So it's very interesting to see something actually built by Italian founders.
That's right. The interesting thing about the round is a 6.2 million euros round labeled as Series B. And the investors are, among the investors, there are a lot of private people, but are quite relevant on the market. So I've been reading from the article. Investors include Guizzoni, who's the chairman of Rothschild Italy, and former CEO of UniCredit. We have Lorenzo Pagani, managing director at PIMCO, which is a quite sizable asset manager.
A tiny guy.
And Alberto Zaffignani, managing director and head of global markets Italy at Natixis, which I just know by name, but I'm not. I don't know much about it. But these are quite relevant investors, I would say.
Absolutely. It seems that people from the banking industry are really betting on AI. So UniCredit, PIMCO, and Rothschild, for sure, it's something that it's a very, very positive signal. So I'm sure there was a big
You know what I find interesting is that the people at the top of these institutions are investing. So not the institutions. So sometimes you see that there's some kind of technology on the market that's relevant for your business, and then you invest because it's relevant for your business. But in this case, the CEO is investing.
Exactly. We like that. It's a good sign. I mean, if you were co-investing, that's definitely like a positive signaling. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on for sure.
And awesome. The other interesting bit is that they are reporting 750 million euros asset under advisory. So they're not an exact asset manager, but they're advising their clients, and it's quite a sizable one too. As a comparison, I believe that Money Farm just reported that they got to 2 billion under management in this case.
Okay.
But if you compare the numbers, that's not exactly apples with apples, but still, I find the results of MDOTM quite relevant.
Yeah. I don't know when it was funded, but definitely that's a sizable size of asset that have been managed also through this new AI. So that's
MDOTM is from 2015, so it's 6 years ago.
Been around. Awesome. Perfect. Right. So let's talk also in like the other big round for from last week, which is, I believe it's on the list. It's Skinlabo, which is connected to the raise of Vertis Venture 5. So Vertis is one of the big SGR in Italy, and they have announced fund number 5, which focuses on scale-ups. And the first deployment that they've been doing is with Skinlabo, a company that does essentially cosmetics and sells them online. And it's a big round of 9.1 million, 4 of which I think they arrive from Vertis directly.
Yeah, so says the news. That's right. Actually, I missed this news from a couple of weeks back. So I apologize with the Vertis team, but it's quite a relevant one. But congrats for the first closing and for the first operation announced. Skinlabo is the direct-to-consumer online cosmetics brand. I met the entrepreneur a while back. He's a very skilled, very experienced, and I believe they're doing quite well. So very interesting first investment for Vertis, I would say.
Fantastic. Moving on in terms of size, Neva SGR, which essentially comes from Intesa, Banca Intesa. It's the venture arm. They have invested 4 million in Skydweller Aero, which is a company that is developing electric technology for planes, essentially. And this is interesting because it's not a typical Italian digital investment of some sort. This is a company, I think, it's a team between Spain and the US, and they're trying to essentially develop something for perpetual flight, which is solar powered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it says, and I would say the other interesting bit here is the diversification by Neva. As you said, it was recently acquired and brought into the Intesa Group control. Yeah. Whereas it was started as a sort of venture arm focused on sectors close to Intesa. So let's say fintech, insuretech. Yeah. And now they changed the strategy that they are diversifying quite a bit.
And it will be interesting. Yeah, and it will be interesting how exactly they're making this investment, because to my knowledge, they started by doing sort of more a venture debt sort of strategy, where it was a sort of form of like some form of loan or convertible notes. But then I don't know how this strategy evolved. So that's also something. Maybe they started as in a safer sort of bank-like structure, and then they moved more toward like a VC kind of structure.
Well, actually, I've seen direct equity investments by Neva.
Cool.
We co-invested in YOLO, for example. We are co-investors there, and they joined straight equity straight away, if I'm not wrong.
Fantastic.
So probably they've always been using a mixed of instruments.
Awesome, fantastic. All right. Some other interesting highlights is, I believe, ViteSicure, an insuretech startup which essentially simplifies the way we buy insurance. And we have here some big insurance player in Italy, Reale Mutua, which is extending sort of the old school way of doing insurance by being active into what is happening with the new tech. We have seen this with Generali Assicurazioni, with other banks, and also Reale, I believe we've seen something happening. So they've been also very active in the insurtech space. And to be honest, I'm not a big fan of insurtech. I mean, I don't know much, to be honest, but it looks good. The product looks good. The product looks simple. And for people that want to visit it, is vitesicure.it. And yeah, it's definitely very innovative, very simple. It caters a new generation of people that want to get insurance, and millennial and post-millennial for sure. And seems easy. So Very correct. Very great for them.
Yep, I agree. So I would say Reale Mutua has been very active in the startup market in the last few years. So they made a few direct investments, and they set up a corporate venture capital office within the firm. And I believe they are also going international in their efforts, both as a limited partner and as a direct investor in startups. So
fantastic.
Good about that.
Yeah. Let's move on to the NFT space with Recent Art. Just to change completely topics, do a 180-degree change. Crypto startup that essentially curates exhibitions, online exhibition of NFT artists. They raised 310,000 euros in a pre-seed round from LVenture. And here again, we have always like a small confirmation that the NFT, it's probably here to stay. Every time I see a raise of some form of NFT enabled startup, that's a confirmatory note, if you will.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I mean, I'm looking at the website right now, and this idea of creating a digital gallery for NFT art is like quite interesting. Yeah. Very interesting. I mean, they're trying far away from my understanding, but still very interesting.
Yeah, and they're playing it also in multiple ways. They're also doing physical installation mixed with digital. So they had a few events, and so they're playing with the notion. I mean, they're hardcore NFT guys, but they're also trying to make it accessible more on the physical space. So that's an interesting way to handle this kind of strategy. Fantastic.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. No, we have a ton of other news. I would actually move on to the liquidity events and then maybe talking about the reports at the end. So in terms of liquidity event, again, we have some AI startup, Vedrai, which acquired also another company that does essentially dynamic pricing. It's called Premanio. So
yeah, exactly.
This is again as an integration strategy, seems to me, where they try to sort of integrate different aspects of the business by acquisition. So I don't know what is your take on this.
Well, we met Vedrai a few weeks back, and the founder was I was going to say the kid, but he's a very young entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur with this vision of bringing AI to small and medium businesses. And I would say that, as you said, is deploying this vision not just by developing direct solutions from within the company, but also by acquiring other providers. And Premanio fits this strategy. Basically, it's a dynamic pricing company, which probably fits.
Vedrai really is a big provider of algorithms that manage data, and they essentially give us insight on the data from different perspectives, being it business accounting, sales, finance, logistics, etc. So having a company that actually develop like solution to gather data and to understand how exactly different pricing, definitely it's a big data play, I would say. So just to try to fill up like all the possible angles in that space.
Exactly. We don't know the price of the acquisition.
Okay.
And neither we know whether it was on by paper or cash, but still.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. Let's talk about the Q Health. Very interesting biotech startup. I mean, now not a startup anymore. They went IPO last week. And among the investor is the Alchimia Holding, which is a holding company focusing on venture capital, managed by one of the member of the family of the Barletta Group, which are real estate developers. And also, I think, there are a few different personalities that are involved in Alchimia. They placed bets in the digital space, not necessarily in a vertical, but in some like project which might be correlated, but they select as high impact. I believe they invested, as an example, in the brand Chiara Ferragni, for example. I don't know if as Alchimia or I don't know if Chiara Ferragni can be considered a startup, actually. In a way, it's more of a franchise brand, if you will, a fashion franchise brand. But no, great for them. The company they entered when the valuation of Q was about 50 million. Now is in the billion, I believe. So they had a nice juicy return. So awesome for them.
Yeah, they report 30x return on initial investment. Actually, I was looking at the value of Q Health the other day, and despite the IPO being priced at around 16 euros, $20 per share, it was going down. So post IPO, it was a bit declining, but still.
It's kind of the classic pattern we have seen also recently with Hellbits and with other IPOs that went through, where there is an establishing sort of pricing volatility, where the price fluctuates like crazy and then kind of sets. So I think they are like in that window essentially. But yeah, so great for Alchimia for sure. Let's see how exactly the stock will move later on, but yeah, the product obviously of Q seems incredible. To be honest, they're based in San Diego, and they're doing high fidelity molecular testing starting from COVID, but they for sure want to expand to testing from different sort of different diseases. So it's a classic sort of California style, extremely well designed product, which is strong in terms of mission and in terms of what they're trying to achieve. So it looks great.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. This idea of having basically a molecular lab in your home, the size of a couple of packets of cigarettes, and you can just purchase the modules for the analysis, and you can self-analyze. That's powerful, and I think it is something that will happen. I don't know whether it will be Q or whatever, but
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day,
that's the unbundling of the healthcare system.
Exactly. The medicine is becoming really more and more like Alexa driven, if you will, where you have a device in your house, you can sort of see how you feel and then gather data and see how exactly, what kind of initiative you need to do to feel better, starting from sleep tracker to the Aura Ring to this like quick testing that you can do at home. It's a big movement for sure. Very interesting.
Nice.
All right, let's talk about the new agreement between CDP Venture Capital and the European Investment Fund, which essentially is extending a project which started in 2016 called ITATech for technology transfer. So essentially working with early stage projects in technology from universities, different sort of engineering departments or other departments that have like some business ideas, and they've been launching project. Now they allocated another 260 million. Both, I think, my understanding is both directly and also in new funds essentially. So people that are trying to launch new funds vertical in specific sectors, then it's something that is gonna be enhanced for sure.
The original ITATech was actually a pure fund-of-fund initiative.
Okay.
And it supported, if I'm not wrong, 4 different operators. One is Vertis Ventures that we met quite a few times in this newsletter, and another one is Politecnico, which is the investor of Lithium Lasers, which we didn't talk about, but it's one of the operations of the week. And this extension yes, as you said,
yeah, I
I'm
mean,
not
they're
sure
trying.
whether they will do direct investments, but again,
It looks like they're gonna help build some poli di trasferimento tecnologico, so facilities where people can gather and essentially launch, carry on their projects, but also financing venture capital funds in general. So it looks pretty advanced to me. It will be interesting to see how exactly they're gonna deploy that capital. So it's up to 260. I don't know if they probably already are starting deploying. So it will be definitely cool to keep an eye on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the CDP side, reading the article, I found out that the promoter of the partnership is the Technology Transfer Fund, which is one of the funds under management by CDP Venture Capital.
So okay.
So it's getting part of that basket of funds to this partnership.
Interesting. Yeah, as we've seen before, CDP is becoming like a big giant composed by different moving parts, different funds with different verticals, and it makes sense actually. It makes sense that they're trying to actually go through the vehicles that they already have specifically for that verticals and strategy.
Yeah, and it makes sense to give continuity to such a program. At least, of course, if it was successful, it's probably early to tell, but still, it's funny sometimes when you see all these new ideas coming up, starting from zero again. Yeah. So it's refreshing to see some continuity in progress that might be that need time to develop and might have an important impact. But
for sure,
time and years.
Awesome. All right, a few reports, a few publications that are relevant. I would leave where you're involved as the last one. So in the meantime, there is a report from a company that does cybersecurity, and it's a report about legal tech Italy. It's about legal tech, what is happening in the startup ecosystem, especially in the legal tech ecosystem. So they do essentially like a good overview of what is happening, how exactly, what are the main players, what is the revenue situation, and how exactly they score in the ecosystem. Seems very niche. I don't think in Italy there is like a huge amount of legal tech startups, but it's good that they're kind of trying to condense them and polarize them in a few different programs so that we get a good sense of what is going on for sure.
Considering the amount of lawyers that we have in Italy, I believe that's the ones that operate in Rome are more than the ones in the whole of France.
What?
I think it's something like that.
It's a masterpiece. It's a masterpiece.
But something like that. If there are lawyers listening, I love you all. Sometimes I'm amazed by the numbers.
The problem with legal tech is that legal tech is trying to replace certain kind of lawyer and certain kind of work the lawyer do. So yeah, I don't think they are the happiest people for when it comes to digital, but it's part of the disruption. So either you adapt or you are cut outside the business. Mm-hmm. Okay. Another report that went out, actually another very interesting article that you mentioned is the one from Federico Benji about the status of the Italian tech ecosystem. It's on his Medium channel, so people can read it. Federico is one of the manager in a Munich-based venture capital firm, and so he's trying to bring together like everything that has happened, and it's a very cool article. It looks definitely there is a good summary of what has been happening lately, which have been the biggest raise, and definitely something recommended. It's also comparison with other nations. That's I haven't gone through it in detail, but it sure is gives some very, very cool information.
It's very dense information, which is very nice. I perceive it as bullish of course, it ends with some positive and negative sides. So we know that Italy has a lot of catch up to do. But still, I perceive bullishness.
I mean, he's pointing out some of the big guys of the latest months, like Satispay, Tannico, Scalapay, big names, big operations. Still not as big as what is happening, of course, in other ecosystem, but quickly catching up for sure. Again, another positive side. All right, so let's conclude with the report about B2B in Italy. What is happening in the business-to-business scene, where you actually one of the contributors. So for people who are listening, it's a report. It's about 90 pages of report talking about B2B Italian startup, and it's been published by Startup Wise guys, which is I believe it's a Danish company. They're based in Denmark or some Nordic country, right?
I think they are from Estonia.
Okay.
Not far north in Europe. I probably will be corrected soon, but still. And they started out there, and then they grew across Europe, and they launched a official branch in Italy a couple of years ago with Andrea Orlando, an Italian who was living in Denmark, who moved back to Italy and took the reins of the new Italian branch. And they run acceleration programs. They focus on some verticals. One is cybersecurity, one is B2B. They tend to have very international extensions and reach. If you take a look at the portfolios, the international portfolio is quite interesting, actually. So it's not a good sign of external knowledge that come to Italy and bring to Italy some more maturity in this type of markets.
That's
the report is very full of information. So
and it's good because it's always very tough to find reliable information for Italy. I was scouting some deals into Crunchbase, and information are tough, as you know. They're not up to date. They're like sometimes they're even old and misleading. So there is a lot of unclarity. It's not like in the US for sure. But reports like these that essentially they take and re-elaborate data from Crunchbase, Deal Room, and the proprietary information is definitely something extremely valuable, especially if it's done on a very, very specific vertical, which is the B2B.
So what should I say? Read the report, of course. Particularly if you're interested into B2B and you want to know more about Italy. So there's also a survey of B2B startups about the current state of the ecosystem. And if you are an investor and want to take a look at companies in Italy in the segment, at the end of the report, there's a list of all the respondents of the survey that are mostly between the seed and the Series H stage. So cool. It's a good way to take a quick overview of who's doing what in Italy.
Fantastic. All right. So with that, we touched the 30 minutes mark. Nico, thank you very much for your intervention. Mario and Alessandra, if you guys have any question, feel free to raise your hand and then we can keep the discussion going. Otherwise, I think we can close it then.
Yep.
All right, Nico.
So, shall we say that our listeners should get ready for a surprise coming up?
Oh, for sure. So the idea that we've been discussing with Nicolò is to bring you guys a lot of in-depth discussion with some of the players of the venture capital ecosystem in Italy. Always done in English, of course, because the idea is to be extremely forward toward what is happening also outside Italy. So we cannot be only self-referential. We need to talk with what is happening outside Italy. And essentially, the first guest that we're going to have is Raffaele Mauro, which is one of the managing partner of Primo Space, which is a venture fund, which focuses on space economy. And this is gonna be live tomorrow night at 6:30, always on Clubhouse, and the recording will be available, of course, on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast, which I encourage you to also visit and see and consult the past episode, essentially. All right. Anything you want to add, Nico?
No, I think you said it all. So see you tomorrow or on the podcast.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.